Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about having an empty first house in a natal chart. Now, as many of you know, the first house governs our outer personality, the demeanor that we can show others readily, the outer characteristics of oneself, outlook on life, the first impression that we give others when they first meet us. First house is connected with our defense mechanisms. It's what we show others often when we're in a situation that we're not entirely sure of. A Taurus rising, for example, like myself, may become obstinate and stubborn and maybe in an unsure situation and show a lot of resistance. Somebody that has Gemini rising may talk up a storm and have their voluble tongue working very strong, so to speak, become very loquacious. They may try to talk themselves out of a situation. Now, an empty first house doesn't mean that one doesn't have an outer personality or have the characteristics associated with that sign connected with the first house. It doesn't mean the person doesn't have an outlook on life or unable to make a first impression. The first house is also the physical body, and it certainly doesn't mean that everybody has a physique, right? We all have a certain stature or size, a body type, which is governed by the ascendant, but it could indicate that one may not overemphasize these areas in one's life or accentuate them very strongly. Now, an empty first house can sometimes indicate that perhaps the person may not quite be sure about one's outer demeanor, their personality. They might feel like they're somewhat enigmatic, or they, as far as maybe understanding their own personality, they don't really maybe quite have a full grasp of it. Now, if somebody were to have, say the sun makes an adverse aspect to their ascendant, this could further accentuate that belief in this person. They feel somewhat misunderstood or misconstrued by others. But anyway, the thing to look at, if somebody has an empty first house, look and see where that chart ruler is. And if somebody were to say have Cancer rising, look and see where the chart ruler lies. And let's say somebody has a Cancer ascendant and the first house is empty. They have the ruler in the 6th house. Now, this would show that personality, that outer personality, comes out strongly, likely, in matters pertaining to work and their health, things with their co-workers, employees, things that are associated with their daily routine. And this is where, and also the 6th house governs like the pets and small animals. I knew someone that figured prominently in my life some time ago, and she had, I believe she had something in her first house, but she had the ruler in the 6th house, and she just had such a strong love for cats, it's not even funny. But the point is, that's where the personality will come out strongly. And if someone has an empty or vacant first house, look and see where that chart ruler is located, what house. And if it makes predominantly good aspects, then the personality can be very flowing and can be more readily perhaps accepted by others, or it's more I guess you could say the personality works well with as far as other people and comes across in a more positive manner. Now, let's say somebody has the ruler of their first house and their first house is empty and vacant, and that chart ruler makes predominantly negative aspects. Well, then you might have a different story, and the person's personality might not always come off in a positive way, especially how others may perceive. It doesn't mean the person doesn't have a good personality. It just could mean that maybe there might be, as far as the perception from others, where the personality doesn't always come off good, and the person, they may encounter situations where others may be somewhat rebuffed by this and by their outer demeanor and as far as their outer personality goes. Now, this could be, this is just somebody that really, if you have an empty first house, keep in mind that there are transits, and also in progressed charts, by progression, you'll more likely than not in a person's lifetime, they will have at least one planet transiting that first house. So, say a first house transit from Jupiter, and Jupiter's transiting that person's first house. Well, that person may come across as being even more buoyant, effervescent, more jovial and jocular during that period than otherwise indicated. If Jupiter, let's say the person has, say, Saturn transiting that first house, well, if Saturn is transiting one's first house, during that period the person may come across with a more serious flavoring to their disposition, and may even seem a little bit more melancholy, a little bit sad, but this person will definitely come across as a lot more stern and a lot more serious during that time when Saturn traverses the first house. So just because one may have an empty first house doesn't mean they don't have an outer personality, doesn't mean they have no outlook on life. Everybody has a physique, the physical body, which is dominated by the sign that is on the first house cusp, which is the ascendant. So that is something to consider, and just remember that an empty first house is not the end, because most people are going to have at least 4 houses that are empty in their chart. And keep in mind that an astrological natal chart consists of 12 houses, and there's 10 planets. So obviously everybody's going to have at least 2 houses that are vacant or empty. So everybody has at least 2 houses that are empty, and the majority of people will have at least 4 houses that are empty. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for having an empty first house in a natal chart. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be dissertating and talking about having an empty second house in a natal chart. 2 things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel, but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because a person astrologically is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.